Hey YouTube, Jonathan here, and for this video we are going to be looking at the United Kingdom and their strategy for their first turn of Axis and Allies Global 1940. We have our Europe map out here. We are going to be looking specifically at the European theater. For now, we are just going to imagine that there is the Pacific board over here. For space reasons, I don't have them both set up. Now, your turn playing as England, or as the United Kingdom, may look different than what you see before you. This is just the culmination of the German and Soviet turns. So I'm just going to use this as an illustration, but your board might look a little bit different. In fact, it's likely to look at least a little bit different, if not significantly different. So the first thing is going to be the purchasing. We are going to go with a fighter, an artillery, and then the rest infantry. And of course, we're all going to put them on England. Now, something to consider, both with those purchases as well as some of the moves that I'm going to show you, you always want to keep an eye on what Germany can send in to hit you if they wanted to do a sea lion. Now, in this scenario, Germany has that carrier, some fighters up there. They've got a battleship, they've got a cruiser, they've got some fighters and tactical bombers in Holland and in West Germany that can all hit. So we want to make sure that at the end of our turn, if they were to throw everything at us, we have a decent chance, well above 50% chance, 75% or better. Basically, a good enough chance of surviving that they really aren't going to even think about attacking us. That's what we're going to want to do there. And so, based on this setup, one fighter and then spending the rest on fodder is going to be a good move, I think. And so, with $29, the fighter being 10 leaves me with 19, and that's how I get the artillery and the 5 infantry. So, on our turn, we're going to focus mostly on the Mediterranean here. Now, this is something that makes me think that I am missing something. And in previous videos, or previous series, I've done one round of videos and then consider different options, things that I've discovered while going through it, and just thoughts that have occurred to me over time, and then created a second series, a second run, if you will. And so I might end up doing with this, since this is my first time really going through this game. But what I had done as Germany was to concentrate quite a few fighters down here. And I've heard a lot about the Taranto raid, but if I am not mistaken, you are able to scramble up to 3 fighters per territory that border a naval zone. And so both of these Italian territories border this, which means, if that is correct, there are now 6 fighters that could all be scrambled to deal with this situation. So that makes it, England shouldn't even bother at that point. And that makes me think that I'm missing something else, because in the couple of videos that I have watched, this has never come up. Germany's never had that many fighters down there, and that really does make me wonder if I'm missing something. But if I'm not, then that pretty much takes Taranto off the table. If I am missing something and Germany can't have that many fighters down there, Taranto, a lot of people do it, and I can see the advantages. We're going to assume that it is off the table. It either is because of the fighters, or England is deciding that they don't want to go that route. And that's fine. There are other options for England. So we're actually going to start up here. We're over here on this side. So one of Italy's national objectives is getting all Allied ships out of the Mediterranean. Another one is to capture certain key territories, one of which is Gibraltar. So we know that they're going to be going after that if we're using national objectives. If we aren't using those, this might be a little less valuable, but I think that it is still at least worth considering. So what we're going to do, because we know they're going after that, we're actually going to take our transport and our destroyer from up here, and we're going to move them down here, and we're actually going to move them into here. Now, this transport is going to pick up 2 infantry from England and put them down here. Now, as I said before, we do want to keep an eye on England and make sure it's not that it's defended well enough. We're actually going to replace those infantry with guys from Scotland, and really we can move the fighter down as well if we want to. If Germany decides they want to invade that, we can kick them off. They only have 1 transport anyway. In fact, we are going to take one of our fighters from here, at least one of them, depending on the situation. For now, to illustrate, I'm just going to use one, and we're going to put him in Gibraltar. We're going to put our bomber in Gibraltar as well. And the reason for this is we know that Italy is going to try and go after it, or at least we have a good reason to believe that. And having our ships here means they don't get any coastal bombardments. They only have 1, after our turn, after we finish up, they're only going to have 2 transports. They're going to end up losing 1 of their transports. And so this is going to be more than enough to hold on to that if they decide to come that direction. If they don't, then we have these infantry we can do something with. We could go into Greece, we could go into Yugoslavia to cause some trouble over here. We also have our ships by that seaport, so we can hit not quite, but almost every place in the Mediterranean if we wanted to. And I realize that's a non-combat, but I'm kind of getting them mixed together. So before I do more non-combat, let me show the actual combat. All of our planes that are able to hit here, which really we've got that fighter and that tactical bomber, and we're going to go ahead and send in a destroyer as well for fodder, are going to go in there, and then we're going to, this is non-combat, we're going to go ahead and back out over there to get them out of there. We're still connected to this naval base. We still are going to, we're going to go ahead and do that to keep Egypt protected. We're not going to be losing that on this turn. And so we're going to have that naval base. And then we are going to next turn swing back in here. The combination of this from this side and this from this side, those 2 naval bases, puts us in excellent position to hit wherever we want. We've got the French Navy up there as well. There is, plus Italy is going to want to take out this destroyer. There's just too much for them to do. So they could either go ahead and concentrate their fleet, which I know is the concern if you don't do Taranto, or if you don't attack their battleship there. But if they do that, then they are leaving all of the other naval forces down here free to roam, and then that's where we counterattack next turn. And if they split up their navy to try and do other things, each battle becomes more risky, and that makes it easier for us to pick them off, because not only do we have these navies, but we are going to have a sizable air force down here as well. I am going to recommend on non-combat that we pull a fighter. I know it's just off the board, but there's a fighter in the Pacific map right here. Pull that over, and we can land that on the carrier to cause some damage on turn 2. We can also go ahead and pick up this infantry, this lone infantry, bring him over here, get some extra infantry, 2 extra infantry for us and some extra production, and then next turn, assuming Japan didn't do a J1 and seeks out this transport to kill it, we can then swing back around and start, putting guys down over here. Let's see, and then we are also going to use this sea base down here, this naval base, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And so at the end of our turn, we will we'll go ahead and do this. So I'll just assume that our destroyer there got hit, and we've got these 2 planes, and then we're going to fly a plane over and land it here. We'll go ahead and put this tactical bomber on there as well. So we've got fully loaded carrier. We've got this fighter. We could either put him over there in Gibraltar, or we could put him in Egypt. And so we end up with, what do we end up with at the end of the turn? We've got Egypt well defended, with the prospect of new infantry flowing in over here. Yeah, we've got this issue down here, but we should be able to deal with that. We've got these guys coming. These guys are coming up over here, and those were the casualties. We also have the French fleet that's going to come up. So over here we have a decent air force. We've got 2 fighters and a bomber. If we need to, we can fly a fighter back up to England if things are looking hairy up there on our 3rd turn. But assuming that they aren't, we've got a decent air force here along with a cruiser and destroyer. We've got the French cruiser and destroyer over there that can help us out, depending on what Italy does. But is Italy going to be able to take out both of those fleets? Well, we'll just have to wait and see on Italy's turn. But then we also have, like I said, we've got England defended, and we've got another cruiser and destroyer and a fully loaded aircraft carrier over here to cause some chaos. And Germany isn't always going to have these fighters down here. It is going to need those fighters for something else. Not too far down the road to fight the Soviet Union. And if they don't, and they decide that they just want to leave them down here because of what we have going on in the Mediterranean, then more power to them, because that's less fighting the Soviets. It's going to make their job easier, and this is a huge front for the Allies against Germany. So that's fine. So the idea is, at this point, that we are not trying to land a knockout blow against Italy. We don't really need to do that. We are just interested in keeping their IPC intake low, preventing them from getting those bonuses, and just kind of hemming them in so that a few turns down the road, when we get the Soviet Union on our side, when we get the United States on our side, and we start to have those big influxes of production onto the Allied side, Italy, which has already kind of been hemmed in, we can slowly squeeze in on it with our production advantage. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to have our forces in multiple places. They aren't able to hit us all at once, and then we're going to use our forces strategically on turn 2 to either cause some mischief over here in the Balkans, or to pick off Italian fleets that maybe strayed a little bit too far from the main fleet, because Italy can't really afford to replace its fleet very quickly. And so we're just going to be looking for opportunities to pick off a couple ships here or a couple ships there if they aren't paying attention, or if they are keeping their fleet close together, then that slows them down as well. And then we can also try and combine our fleet, because they won't have wiped it all out that quickly. So that's the idea with the UK that I have going on right now. Once we get through this series, I will go ahead and make a series using the Pacific map, and anything that's kind of borderline, like that fighter in India just off the side of the board that could be useful here, I'll go ahead and mention that. Otherwise, we will just be using the pieces that are on the board right here. England also has the dual economy, but it has to keep its Europe money separate from its Pacific money. And it could be, when I look at the Pacific board, maybe there's something else I want to do with that fighter. But right now, I'm thinking that having it over here, having this strong air force, fully loaded carrier plus another fighter here, that can really cause Italy a headache a little bit down the road. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that this is a strategy you've not seen before. I take bits and pieces from things I've seen online, as well as add my own thoughts and observations and ideas to it. So I hope this is something new, and that you have all enjoyed this video, and I hope to get another one up before too long.